Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to another episode of the Leadership Huddle. I'm your special guest host, Dr. Monica Ogando. Today we're talking about informed, not inflamed, the Courageous Leader's Guide to Navigating Chaos. And it seems to be so timely, given everything that's going on in the world, given everything that's going on with climate, with the environment, maybe even with your personal and professional life. So I wanted to talk about what that looks like. What does it look like to be courageous in the midst of chaos? What does it look like to be informed, not inflamed? And there's a lot of conversation around settling our nervous system. And if you know anything about your biology, then you know that your nervous system starts at your brain, starts there, right? It starts at this major satellite system in your body and goes through your major glands, through your spine, all the way to your root chakra. And so in ancient civilizations, these things were called energy centers, or in ancient Hindu language, chakras, energy centers. And they're associated with your glands, with hormonal glands. They secrete hormones, right? So you have, for example, in your brain, you have the pineal gland and you have the pituitary gland. The pineal gland is associated with your crown chakra. The pituitary gland is associated with your third eye. And then you have the thyroid, and it's associated with your throat chakra. Then you have the thymus, and it's associated with your heart chakra. Then you have the solar plexus, and it's associated with your adrenal glands. Then you have your reproductive glands, hormones. For men, it's your penis and your prostate, and for women, it's your ovaries and your cervix. Right. And so these aren't like just woo-woo terms that somebody came up with and now you do yoga based on it. Yoga itself is 1,000-year-old, multiple thousands of years old tradition. And it's based on your biology. And so when we're talking about being informed, not inflamed, we're talking about dealing with what is actually happening, what it actually means to you, because as we know, human beings are money-making machines, and regulating your nervous system in such a way that you remain grounded while still allowing yourself to experience whatever it is that you're experiencing based on the meaning that you have given the things, and then moving accordingly. How do we do that? How do we do that? Well, first we have to alert us. How do you know that you're inflamed? Let's start there. Let's start with, how do you know that you're dysregulated? Because a lot of times we've been dysregulated for so long that it's just the new normal. You don't even know you're dysregulated. You just think this is just the way life is. Right? And so how do we know this? Let me give you some tests. And then I want you to put a 1 in the chat if you've ever experienced this or seen it happen. Okay? So if somebody has ever cut you off in traffic and your response is to say something about blee, 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 what a blee you are, and blah, 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 and everybody got somebody to go blee, and you just react to that, put a 1 in the chat if that has ever happened to you, or cut you off in a line, or done something that's kind of like out of what your expectation is. For example, you may be in the middle of a conversation and somebody interrupts you and you're like, look at them like, I know you heard me talking. Why is your mouth open? And my mouth is open at the same time, and you kind of get indignant a little bit. No, just me. So when you react defensively, when you react angrily, even if you say nothing and do nothing, but inside your experience of yourself is it being in anger, that's still a reaction, right? And a lot of times people think that a reaction means that you're flying off at the mouth and you're throwing things. No, it doesn't have to be that extreme. It could really just be you tense up, right? Or you're about to say something and you get quiet because your silence is punishment, things like that. We get real subtle with the ways in which we react. See, I see the ones in the chat, right? So when you see something happening in the external world and your reaction is to tense up or to get defensive, then you know that you're already dysregulated. It's that simple. It's that quick. Let me tell you what I'm comparing it to. When a child, a toddler, let's say 2, 3 years old, something happens to that child in that world that is out of their ordinary, something that they're not expecting, they don't get mad, they get curious. They're like, what just happened? What was that noise? The only real fears that we're born with is the fear of falling and the fear of loud noises. Truly. Everything after that, every fear that you've ever had, every reaction that you've ever had is learned. Gio, you have your hands up?
I do.
Hi.
Hi. Yeah, I wanted to include something in this conversation,
Yes.
and so that for me, it provides on the court insight of what I feel is where most people are. Because one way I'm hearing this conversation is, a context in which I'm hearing this conversation is from the opportunity of learning out, but not in my life, about self-control. But what I see with a lot of people close to me and clients and everyone is that it's everything they know about self-control and emotional balance is not using them, given the social conditions that we find ourselves in.
Mm-hmm.
It's very loud. It's very loud for most of us who are somewhat close to the news, or they fear losing their jobs, or they fear, it's really real, the fear that I sense from most of the people close to me about the future of their life and about the future of the world. And I wanted to get your insight on navigating the chaos that most people find themselves in, as you're saying, while you're driving. Are you screaming out loud?
Yeah.
I have a client of mine, Dr. Ogando, who meditates and does yoga, right? And is in many ways financially stable. And he was sharing with me how he got into a fight with a woman at his yoga class because she took his spot. Well,
Mm-hmm.
for her, he took her spot.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is a human being who understands the conversation of emotional balance, yet he's fighting at the yoga class
Yeah.
with a lady about the
Right.
spot of where do you yoga. And I think that that's where the world is. At the risk of speaking for most people on this call, I'm not, but I do think that's where the world is, that they get the concepts, but they don't really see what you're saying.
Yeah.
They don't really see that they are living an internal chaos. Anyway, that's what I want.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for bringing that up because I was going from individual to structural is where I was taking the conversation, and you've brought us there. So part of it is you probably have heard the term, we need to stop acting like crabs in a barrel and attacking each other and so forth, right? But here's the part that most people miss. Crabs don't live in barrels. So the way that crabs act when they're in a barrel is completely unlike what they would do in regular life. they're in a stressed environment when they're in a barrel. So the way that they act when they're in barrels is just trying to survive. It's just trying to make sense of things. It's just trying to get back to homeostasis. They're trying to get out of the barrel so they can go back to the sand and live the way that they've always used to living, right? And so if that means I got to climb over you, so be it. But I'm gone. I don't want to be here. And so what we are seeing is a lot of the stress, a lot of the lashing out, the defensiveness, et cetera, that we may see in day-to-day life is perhaps trying to get out of the barrel that they've been put in structurally, systemically, right? You didn't put yourself there necessarily. You just live in your life, and all of a sudden somebody is in this political position, and then this happened to the economy, and then this happened to some policies, and then this happened to your insurance, and then this happened, and da-da-da. And those are things that you feel like are not out of your control, but are still very much affecting you, and you don't know what to do about it. Those are structural, systemic changes. And there are populations throughout history that have lived under the boot of structural damage for many, many years, if not centuries. And those folks, usually indigenous, melanated people, have learned how to live under that pressure, such that when more pressure comes, it doesn't nearly affect them as much as somebody who's used to not living there. So now when somebody who's not used to living under structural oppression gets a taste of that, they're losing their fucking minds. Excuse my French. And they're looking at the other person who's been used to living under structural oppression, like, why don't you do something? And they're like, hey, you got it. Handle you. You said you wanted this. Go ahead. We've been telling you that this is what happens. When they come after one of us, they come after all of us. We knew that the way that human beings have survived millions of years of civilization and evolution is by sticking together. We knew that. And the time that you say it's time for individualism and you get another community out of your mind because it doesn't affect you, so that you can live in peace, so that you can live removed from knowing the negative stuff that's affecting another piece of community because you don't relate, eventually that's going to come for you too. So that part of being informed and not inflamed is coming back to homeostasis. What it looks like for a human being to be in homeostasis is to be in community. Not just to be regulated on Omnyo Horenge Kyoyo yoga class, because that's consumerism of your own character. Right? So for the majority of human history, the way that we have developed character is by going through chaos in community. That's where we learn how to be in integrity. That's how we learn how to be a contribution. That's how we practice being in empathy with one another. This is how we learn how to be in protest when somebody's rights are being violated or somebody's well-being is being challenged. We learn how to nurse each other back into health by being in community. And so the first step in regulating yourself isn't necessarily just, I mean, yes, it's useful to close your eyes, take a deep breath, and kind of like regulate your nervous system. That's useful. But that's barely the beginning. That's just so you can get yourself online. But what's the line? To get yourself online, what's the line? The line is community. And most of the human movements that we have seen throughout history have started with people that are in community. I'm remembering the quote by Margaret Mead that says, "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has." So it doesn't have to be community like a country. Many times it doesn't get that way until it reaches critical mass. It could be your neighborhood. It could be your family. It could be the people at work, in your company. That small group of thoughtful, committed citizens. Right? And how do you get there? You start by sharing your stories. This is how I'm feeling. This is what I'm seeing. What are you looking at, etc. But not as a way to commiserate in fear, but rather to take temperature so that we can then navigate this together. Those are the conversations that begin movement. When you start caring for one another and start saying, this is how we can fix it together. This is how we can move forward together. It requires thoughtfulness. It requires patience. It requires agility, because a lot of times the solution that you see, it may not be the solution somebody else sees. And we must be okay with the amorphous nature of beginning a community, because sometimes it's kind of like, I don't know where this is going. And you have to be patient with making it shape up the way you want to, the vision that you have. Some people may fall off because you may disagree, or this may not be what they want, or they may not be up for the work. Just call me when it's done. Like, I'm ready for dinner. I'm not ready for cooking. Right? So they want to consume your labor. They don't necessarily want to participate in it. Right? That's okay. Everybody's got a role. Right? To use that analogy, there are some people who are really good cooks. But by the time that they finish cooking, they're so tired. They're just like, they've been eating along the way anyway, so they're not going to sit down for dinner with you. But then there are some people that just showed up for dinner. And if you're depending on dinner based on the people who just showed up, there'll be nothing on the table. You need the cooks. You need the people who go get the groceries. You need the people who chop up the vegetables. You need the people who are monitoring things that set the table and so forth, right? Everybody's got a role. So to use that analogy, in your community, whether that be your church, whether that be your synagogue, whether that be your family, whether that be your workplace, your company, etc., everybody has a role in how to move the conversation forward, how to elevate the consciousness of this small group of thoughtful, committed citizens. Some folks, to use a very popular term, some folks' role is just to play devil's advocate. They're the ones, you may think that they're the party poopers. You may think that they're the naysayers, but they're actually elevating your thinking by having you consider the things that you have not thought, the things that may go wrong, the things you haven't thought about, right? And sometimes that delays the conversation, but it's useful because then you come to a more complete answer when you move forward. And you have to be okay with separating your conflations, separating your assumptions out of reality. Here's what I mean by that. Sometimes we think if I arrive at an answer quickly, that means I'm on track. Maybe you've arrived at an answer quickly because you're addicted to fixing things, not because you're interested in having the answer that works for everyone, right? So when somebody asks you to slow down, they're not necessarily challenging you in your skill of being a problem solver. They're adding to your skill of being a problem solver by having you consider a more complete, inclusive answer. And we have to consider that. Because we've done this thing where it's like, well, it works for me, so fix your problem, right? As leaders, as a courageous leader navigating chaos, you want to be able to consider all possibilities and move with the one that works for the most amount of people. Gio, you have something?
Yeah, so one of the things that I'm hearing from today's conversation, right, and it's a huge conversation, but what I'm hearing in today's conversation is to navigate what we most of us are dealing with, our chaos, and to help others navigate chaos, and to develop the skills of a leader who can navigate chaos. One of the things that I'm hearing from you is like uh, develop a conscious or create a conscious effort for community is what I'm hearing this conversation is saying. To allow community to be part of the chaos that I'm currently experiencing
Mm-hmm.
so that they, whatever role they are, whether they're cooking and whether they are eating, that whole holistic aspect of community can allow a leader to navigate chaos.
Yeah.
And what I'm seeing, and maybe it's that my community is so small, or maybe my thinking is so small, that what I'm seeing is that most of us have no training in navigating, in seeing, uh, in seeing how to take advantage of the cook, how to take
Mm-hmm.
advantage, not like advantage, but like to
No, optimize their role.
optimize, yeah. The
Mm-hmm.
role of the cook, the role of the person that brings the groceries, the role of the person who eats.
Yes.
It because the way I see it now, or the way I'm sort of consciously seeing it, is that most of us see leadership as the director of what to do, what's best for me, you know? And I think that there is so so that's what I'm trying to point to. I think that it in the need, in the natural selfish need to solve my problems, to solve your problems, right? For the one who's listening. Inside of that paradigm, I can't optimize the role of everyone, not even myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there's a couple of things that I want to point to in what you're saying. There's an assumption in what you're saying, not that you're making necessarily, but that is endemic in that way of thinking, that leadership is hierarchical, right?
No,
That the guy up here is the leader and everybody else is following. And that's
no,
not necessarily
so that you don't go in a different direction. I'm not saying that.
okay.
What I'm saying is what my sense of community right now is that there is a high level of chaos.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in the world of communities. I'm in many communities.
Sure.
So I'm not just saying that.
Mm-hmm.
And never mind the hierarchical view, the individual view that people have. What I'm seeing is that human beings are out of perspective, and emotional perspective. They are arguing a lot more than before
Yeah.
to be right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. So
Go
let's
ahead.
go back to that analogy of the two, and Ronald, I see your hand being raised in a second. Let's go back to that reference to the only two fears that we're born with is the fear of falling and the fear of loudness, right? What does that actually even mean? To an infant, a loud noise is something that's unexpected, that startles them, and that they don't know where it came from or where it's going or what it means for them. Like, does this is a monster? Like, what's happening, right? It's that uncertainty. And then the fear of falling is, if you're sitting there in your mother's arms or you're sitting there just chilling, having a good time, whatever, and all of a sudden the bottom falls out. Like, where is reality, right? And so we carry that throughout our whole human existence. We need a base level of what is reality, and we need a certain level of certainty. When the reality becomes litigible, when reality becomes arguable, and you have a set of facts and I have a set of facts, facts are facts. What are you talking about? Right? So when the bottom drops out and reality is questionable, we lose our minds. That's not human beings lacking character. That you were born with that fear, right? And the same thing with with uncertainty. It's when you don't know what's next. Oh my God. I mean, if the bottom has dropped out, then certainly you don't know what's next. The loud noises is just built in there, right? And so, what does that look like for, I know that you navigate communities, Gio. So, people being snippy with each other is symptomatic of the bottom dropping out, of the uncertainty that people live with. Like, what's next? What's the next thing that's gonna threaten my survival? Right. And so the conversation isn't around creating safety for myself so that I can be available for other people, although that is one of the things that you get to do. It's more like what's actually happening. Like really, let's get in our bodies and in our reality so that we can reestablish what the baseline reality is for ourselves. Like right now, for example, I am inside of an apartment and I'm warm and I have Wi-Fi and I have electricity. And if I wanted water, I can go get it. If I wanted breakfast, I can go get it. If I had to pay for something, I could do that. Right. And so the idea of me being stressed right now is a mental exercise, an emotional exercise. Right. When we can get clear on that and say, okay, what thought and what emotion am I battling with such that this is my experience right now, even though ostensibly all is well? When we can start coming out of that barrel like that, little by little, first, establish reality. The bottom has not dropped out. There are things that are happening, right, that affect me. Yes, but I'm well right now. Okay, great. Let's build from there. And let's get some perspective. This is why community is so important. Because when you know history, you can detect patterns way faster than somebody that doesn't have that information and doesn't have that kind of context. Has this ever happened before? Whatever it is, whatever it is. Um, Dictatorships, economies falling out, etc. Whatever it is, has this happened before? Yes. And what did people do to get out of it? What worked when they got out of it and what didn't work when they got out of it? Learn from that. This is why telling of history is so important. And sharing each other's histories is so important. What about your experience? What about your experience? What did you do? What did you do? And this is also how we come to identify what our role is in revolutions, in movements. There are some people that are in the front of the line, and they're happy to be in the front of the line because that's where they shine, or that's where they're most useful. And then there's the people that are making sure you got water, making sure that when you're in the front lines and somebody spray something at you that you don't go blind, that you are, that you can get back to safety, that they're driving the getaway car or whatever the case may be, right? So that's another way of saying that everybody's got a role in that. And so the important part isn't necessarily about how do I get myself to not yell at people. It's a way bigger game than that. What is actually happening and what's my role in creating a new reality, a different experience? Now, before I go to my conclusion, I want to get what Ronald wanted to say.
Uh, I'm gonna be quick. So from the beginning, and that's why when you came back from Gio's comment, that's why I give the thumbs up. I really get the golden aspect of it is what we're born, the loud noise and the fear of falling. So the loud noise in the office environment occur when somebody is triggered and they triggered and the either raise their voice or something happened that really changed the level of the environment or the settlement, because just like Gio was saying, there is this aspect of being in an office environment where everyone is, I would say is not authentically respond, but everyone is suppressed for survival in a way where, like, okay, I'm not gonna raise my voice, you're gonna do this, I'm gonna be, but you would find one day or one how somebody say, God damn it, you did this, blah, 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 blah. And then boom, that raised voice kind of triggered a whole, setting. And
Yeah.
then that's the one of the fear the fear of the noise that we are born with that really get triggered, and the whole ambience is just going south. So I was just really get that golden nugget of the chaos
Yeah.
that happened when, authenticity set in, because we live in the inauthenticity aspect where we all settling for, okay, everything is kumbaya. But when something change, the whole thing kind of get, that's where the chaos happen, and the whole ambience change. But I was just getting it, and I was like, okay, this is exactly, now I understand why, I guess, from the starting of your presentation to that point of survival, this is when it happened.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
what I
Yeah.
wanted to share.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you. Yeah. So I mean, it's important for us to know how that shows up throughout our lives, right? So the bottom falling out, the fear of falling shows up as an adult as the bottom falling out, reality being questionable and questioned. And the fear of loud noises shows up as those unexpected, um, things where you feel like your safety is at risk, right? And so what I'm asking all of us to do as courageous leaders is to, one, understand what your own role is, right? That to understand where your own grounding is first. Like, let me just check in with myself. Where am I? And then secondly, what am I making this mean? Because if I'm where I am is I am safe and I'm dealing with meaning making, well, that's no different than the rest of your life. This is what we do. We're meaning making machines, right? And so you just feel like the stakes are higher because maybe your job is at stake, or maybe the future of the country is at stake, or maybe the future of this particular group of people is at stake, or that you are uncertain about your safety at any given moment, and that has you on high alert, hypervigilance. Got it. Now, what can we do about this so that we can get back to homeostasis? Does that require protest? Does that require political involvement? Does that require, having a call tree in your neighborhood, in your community, so that you can check in with one another, et cetera, right? And so then we make meaning about that. It's like, well, we didn't used to have to do this. That means something is wrong. If we have to do this, now we have to check in with each other. I can't just go on to my individual business and not care about other people. Because when I wasn't caring about other people, I had less to worry about. This is true. But now, instead of it being that there's more danger, perhaps the invitation and the reframe could be that the I that you thought you were is becoming bigger. It's not just about your specific individual concerns. Now you are a bigger I. So that now when you say I am safe, it's me and my family. It's me, my family, and my neighbors. It's me, my family, my neighbors, and my community. Me, my family, my neighbors, my community, my state, my country, my nation, my world, my planet, right? The I becomes bigger the more and more courageous that you become as a leader. And it's not okay just to be safe for myself or for my family. Now, in order for me to really feel useful and effective, it's got to work for everybody, or for the highest number of people. And then I deal with the grief that maybe it didn't work for everybody, because there's grief involved in that. But this is the part about being informed and not inflamed, that you understand your role in it. And you also understand, like that starfish story, a little kid that was throwing starfish back in the ocean, and the old man's like, don't you know that you're not going to make a difference with everybody? You're not going to be able to save everybody. And he picked up a starfish and threw it in the ocean. He said, I made a difference with that one. Yeah. And so that's what we get to do in our lives, that we get to make a difference in ourselves, with ourselves, and then make a difference in your family, in your community, in your state, in your country, in your hemisphere, maybe culture, even race, even. And your I becomes bigger the more courageous you become. So I'm not sure that we can solve it in a 30-minute episode of the Leadership Huddle, just like we didn't solve it with sitcoms back in the 80s and 90s. But I want you to walk away with some things to think about. One is, what is the I that I think is at stake here? Because it may not just be your individual I, it may be a bigger I. And that lets you know that you're already evolving. You are already growing your definition of I. What's the I that I think is at stake here? And two, what can I do today to contribute to that I? Whether it be your community, your state, your nation, your planet. Maybe it's putting your trash in the trash can instead of just throwing it out the window. It could be something as simple as that. Maybe it could be about having an authentic, to use your word, Ronald, an authentic conversation with someone to speak to what people are feeling and create permission for people to feel where they feel so that we can move forward together. There's an ancient African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. And that's all we're doing, is navigating how fast and how far we want to go. We can't do it alone. Thank you, everybody, for staying here a little bit longer than anticipated. This is a juicy conversation. I appreciate you. As always, get yourself 7 to 9 hours of sleep. I know it's hard nowadays. Right? Eat some plant-based food, stress less, move your body. As some of you who were in the Daily Huddle know that I say Kundalini, twerking is a Kundalini raising exercise. It is a spiritual practice to twerk. Go ahead and do it. Laugh. Give of yourself, your time, your energy, your heart. And as always, audit your assumptions. Check yourself before you wreck yourself. We love you. See you next time.
Take care, family. Have a good day.